Hello and welcome. I'm Joanne Law, the Director of Mediation Institute, and I would like to introduce Eve Clare. Eve is a very experienced family group conference facilitator and trainer. We've been collaborating for a number of years now on family group conferencing. We both feel really passionate about the benefits and hoping that it will be adopted and used, I guess, in its intended way, more and more around the country.
Welcome today. I'm going to take you through a little bit more information on family group conferencing, and then if there's any questions that anyone specifically has, I'll do my best to answer them. I do have some slides that I will go through today. Before I do, I'd just love to hear if anyone would like to share, have they been involved in family group conferencing? What sort of brought you to the webinar today? Maybe if you even just type it in the chat, sort of what brought you to it. Okay, but in the meantime, I'll get started. If you can just let me know, you can see everything okay?
Yep, can do.
Great. Okay. So before we start today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and especially welcome any First Australians that are here with us today. I am sitting on the lands of the Yugambeh people. Oh, it says in Gippsland. That's not correct. That was a typo from when Joanne was presenting. So I'm here in Coolangatta, and I know that everybody is scattered today, and that's the greatness of the virtual world. We're all able to come together. Let me just briefly tell you why I'm even presenting about family group conferencing today. I think it was back in 2011. I've been saying this for years now, and I'm feeling like, oh, it's obviously getting longer and longer. So that's, yeah, I guess 13 years now that I've been part of family group conferencing. I was working in family work, and I was asked to be part of a pilot program in New South Wales where we were introducing family group conferencing as a tool, a resource that families could use to create plans for their family, their children, for their future. So I was, yes, that sounds great, because I understood this real sort of gap between the families that I was working with, which then soon led into me being one of the first family preservation as well in New South Wales when it rolled out in our area too. So I was working very closely with families and also with the department as well. And I could see a real disconnect in how they were communicating, how they were working together, and how they were listening to each other as well. So really, and also how that extended family. There was a lot of isolation in terms of the department speaking with the potentially just immediate parents and not involving a lot of the time not even speaking to young people or teenagers, and often them being left out of what they actually wanted and needed, and their voice was definitely not part of that process most of the time, and that extended family network was not part of it either. So it was often what I felt was, well, these are things that need to happen, but then it came back onto the parents, and we know that in isolation without the support and understanding of that environment and that network that's around them, it was often just they weren't able to move forward with the right supports that they needed. They were just doing the things that they were asked to do. So when I saw family group conferencing, I knew that this was a way for things to be able to change by using this process. Basically, it is a process. It is something that has been adopted, and I'll talk about that in a moment, from New Zealand, and the creation and the purpose of why it was created. I still very much honour that. So I do like to see, although we have flexibility depending on the culture of the family, the community that we're in, there is some adaptation that can be done. But yeah, so I went all in on family group conferencing 13 years ago. And then I was asked by the people which was Uniting Care, to privately deliver it once the pilot was over. because they were still, the department was then starting to ask them, can you still do more? I know the pilot's over. And they said, hey, would you be able to do some for us? So I did. And then I became an internal trainer for them as well. And I was flying to all regional parts of Australia, often sometimes taking some time off from my preservation work to do this because it was so new, right? Like it wasn't something, it was very like small amounts of contract work. Most caseworkers didn't know anything about it. So we were also educating caseworkers at that time. And slowly over time, I've seen it really adapt into being one of the first points of call, and that all families are going through this process. And then I'm seeing it adapt into places like all different states, slightly varied in different places, and maybe just called slightly a different name as well. But we're really seeing it being rolled out, yeah, everywhere in child safety services. So for me, this has been a really exciting progression of seeing how much it's being used, because I am very passionate about it. The experience that family have with it is pretty incredible in working in that family preservation work, to now also seeing, I'm obviously very passionate about family group conferencing, and I love seeing it rolled out more. I love the transition that I'm seeing, that it's something that's coming more now when families are first coming into the department, as opposed to just something that is being used kind of at the end of the journey because they're not sure like what else they could do, or the court might have ordered it. Where now we're really seeing that as a first point of call, that, hey, let's bring all the family together and let's involve the family and the parents as well in making decisions about how they're going to keep their children safe and what are the best decisions for them. Because this model is when families are making those decisions, that the best outcomes are coming from that. There's definitely some formalities in how that's created. So we've got some FDRPs. You will find a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. We have trained a lot of FTRP. It's something that I'm also trained in through the Mediation Institute as well. And that's how our partnership started in creating it together. Because it's something that a lot of the stages and the way that the process is not unsimilar. It's not really different, but in terms of how you facilitate it and engage with families throughout that process, before, during, and after, can be quite different. And it's really what I love about facilitating family group conferences. It really comes from taking a step back, where when we're an FDRP, for example, we're really like mediating that process, where this is different in the terms of we're facilitating for a group to come together, and we're sharing with them a process that we're holding throughout the day. So a family group conference is usually goes from like 10 till 3. It's usually at least 5 hours. So it's quite a long journey. So a family group conference was originated in New Zealand. It was created by a group of Maori people that were asked to come together and create a process that would ensure that within the Child Protective Services, because there was so many children going into care in the Maori community, that they wanted a process that could ensure that culture and community and family would become paramount to keeping children safe as a protective factor. So that's actually where it originated and why. So I really like to honor that, because it really was created with those intentions, and that's where we're seeing it often used in Indigenous communities as well, and sometimes adapted by them specific for their community as well in Australia. If there's any questions as we go along, just pop them in there. Interested in learning what FGC is and how it's relevant to your role? Okay, great. Child youth advocate. Okay, great. Well, I think you will love family group conferencing, because it's really one of the big aspects of family group conferencing is that we really involve the voice of the child. So obviously that's always in the most appropriate ways. And as we know, as you would know, we can't assume based on an age of what's going to be the most appropriate way. So as facilitators, we definitely have some decisions to make around that. And with that, we involve the whole family, the caseworkers, the different services that are involved in what's most appropriate. So it might be that children are present in the conference. It might be that they write letters for the conference. It might be that they draw some pictures that get taken along to the conference. It really depends how we involve the children. And that's something that we go through, obviously, in the training is what are the different ways that you can involve the children. And for me, I always ensure that aspect is not lost, even if it's a 2-year-old. So I will go and just understand, obviously, other people that are involved with that child are going to bring a lot more to the table. But for me, just even acknowledging that child at the beginning as a facilitator, saying, I've met Tommy, Tommy really loves trains, doesn't he? Really looking at, there's always a way that we can ensure that this is very child-centered and that those different aspects are brought in as well. It might be down to having even pictures on the table. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate children. And like I said, down to then the fact that children could actually be there. And I've seen teenagers really have a huge impact on what the outcome of a conference was, and just some incredible things that have happened in family group conferences when we do actually involve the voice of the child. And obviously that takes skill as a facilitator that we need to develop. Don't be scared off if you don't have those skills yet. In terms of working with children, it's something that we talk about in the training that you can develop. And the great thing is that we have a whole community and also family there that can support that voice of the child as well. It's always about finding the expertises that you might need to support you as you grow and develop in those areas. So the stages of a family group conference, and this is coming from the original created model, which New South Wales has adopted that original model. But like I said, if you go and look at Queensland, it's exactly the same. It's just they call it family group meeting instead of family group conference. So that's really it. And in some other places, they'll allow it to be done internally by the department. This is, in my personal opinion, this is not the model that I would like to see utilised, but it is the model that has been used. New South Wales did try and attempt that model in the beginning and they realised it didn't work. Now they have independent facilitators, which I'm part of the panel of providers that they go to and give those referrals to. I'm also a mentor for other new facilitators for the department as they come into FGC. If we look at it, I guess the big picture is that there is some non-negotiables that go with this, and this is when the sort of formal things come in. And if you're an FDRP, you might know that's how it is a little bit different, but it's also a little bit the same. So the department is setting these non-negotiables. So these are the things they're just not flexible around. And they make it clear, and in order to have a family group conference, the family need to agree that they're willing to make a plan based on those non-negotiables, those bottom lines. And they're usually because of child safety issues. But as a facilitator, these are things that we're going to be supporting and adapting with. Obviously, there's so many little intricacies to go into, and I'm trying to stay away from the detail, but during the training, this is how we dig deep into these parts. So when we receive that referral, we start by preparing and we meet with all of the extended family. So for some people, when they first do the training, that's like really far out. Whoa, because sometimes these families are really big and we have to meet with a lot of people. Our role is, again, facilitation. So it's not about being a counsellor, a support worker. It is really about preparing people for a meeting. And then we have the meeting itself, which we facilitate. So the department are there, the family are there, and a couple of key workers. What I love about family group conferencing, it's not about your normal case conference where you've got a couple of family and mostly services. It's the opposite. And if I have no services, unless it's like really needed for particular families, I prefer to have no services. There's just the department that have made the referral, or let's say it's an out-of-home care agency. It's not always the department that you get referrals from, because it is being widely used now. That it's mostly just family, because that's what it's about and that's what it was intended to. And when we have an imbalance, we have a very different conference. And I've seen that happen recently when I was mentoring a new facilitator. And yeah, it really changes the whole dynamic of the conference. And then afterwards, there's hopefully, which I'm continuing to advocate for, a plan review meeting to review the plan and the progress and see how that's going. So that's like the framework and the outline of how family group conferences actually proceed. Just see if there's any more questions. Okay, yep, good question. So the question is, in the preparation meetings, how many family members might be on average? Let's say, I would say like on average, maybe 8. If I was to average it, I would, if you're only meeting with a small amount, it means you're only having a small amount at the conference. So probably 6 to 8 would be your average. Probably like 12 would tend to be my max. If there was going to be more people in a conference, I would assume there's probably partners and stuff. And sometimes you can meet with a few family members at the same time if they're really sort of extended and not super involved with the children too much. But yeah, every family is obviously very different in that. So just to give you like a quick brief outline. So on the actual day, so after you've met with those 8 people or whoever that is, everyone comes along to the conference and you have your normal welcoming and introductions. And then there's an information sharing stage. So this is a time where everyone shares information, how they can support the family moving forward. So it's a very strength-based process. And this is where your preparation is going to come in. If facilitating 2 people as opposed to 10 people, obviously is different. And this is where some of the differences really come into something like FDRP, because you've really got to make sure that on so many levels, people are very prepared, that when they come into this information sharing, there's not huge surprises. They understand what they want to offer. If they have questions, the amazing thing is everyone's in the same room, same time, hearing the same answers, which is often not the case when we're talking about children that are in care or at risk. Does that mean you would make in average 6 to 8 trips to meet the family plus online meetings with the department staff? Correct. Yep. I will try to, if they all live in the same town, I'll try to do quite a few. Some with the parents or the key members as well, like I might go and see them 2 times in person as well. So there's a lot of preparation so that goes well. And part of that is building your trust and rapport, and so you have to do that really fast, obviously, because when you come into this meeting, because there is so many people, if you have the trust that they trust that you're going to be balanced and neutral as a facilitator, and you're going to uphold all the guidelines and the framework of how it's going to go, because that's what you've shared with them. But at the same time, you're going to confidently have the strength to make sure that people going outside the boundaries and the guidelines, that you can bring them back in. So as a facilitator, they're the things really that families, they want to be able to trust you with that, because this is a really important time. But once all of that is done and shared, and it's great, like family members jump in and they become, you start to see the sort of different hierarchy, the different roles that family have. And this is where although we need to be there and at different times jump in, I love it when I'm part of a family group conference and I hardly have to say anything. Like that's my ultimate goal, is that I've prepared them so well that they're able to come and ask questions of the department, share different concerns, share different ways that they can help each other as a family, talk about their strengths, talk about the things that they're worried about, and they're able to do that as a family. Yes, there is some conflict. Yes, there is some tension. That's very normal. And when we can be okay with some of that, which is probably a little bit different to the FDRP stuff, that's when we can really take a step back and allow families to be very empowered to use this as their decision-making process. So that's why I love family group conferencing. It is quite different in that sense. And when we do that, this is where we have the best outcomes, because family make decisions that we don't realize. Then there may not be things that we think of, because they're what a family knows so many years and decades of history that they understand about themselves. They know what they've tried, what hasn't worked, and the reasons why. And we can't know that in such a short period of time. We can't ever know that to the extent, of course. So that's why families making these decisions and these plans, although if we give suggestions and we give ideas, it's going to, they might be great and we might have seen them work with somebody else. It doesn't mean that's going to work with this particular family. So when we refrain from that as a facilitator and we really just be a facilitator, then we allow families to make plans that are so outside of what any case plan would have ever come up with for them. So this is the power in family group conferencing. Now, after all that information sharing time, which usually takes, it's usually, let's say 90 minutes, then there's a meal time. So this is another really beautiful part of family group conferencing, that everybody comes together for a meal. And then family go back into planning time. We support the beginning of that process, and then we leave the room. We allow families to make these plans themselves. We're just outside the room. The department's not in there either. Like, it's literally just family members. And of course, we do allow preparation around safety and the different dynamics of power and everything that's in there as well. But that's a whole nother discussion. And then after that family planning time is done, let's say it usually takes about 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours. Then we go into plan validation. That's when we all come back in the room and we just make sure, is it in the best interest of the children? Will it keep the children safe? Have they upheld the non-negotiables? Is there anything missing from the plan? And this is where the department can agree on that. Everybody signs off on it. And you go back as a facilitator and you document that. Type it up in their words so that everybody has a copy and can continue to follow through with that plan. Immediately on the day, they can take it home. I think I've gone through that. So I'll just stop sharing for a minute because I've talked a lot, and just see, was there any questions that came up from that? Hopefully that gave you, if you didn't know much about it, that gave you a better understanding of family group conferencing. And then I can share with you a little bit about how the panel might work, or how you might become a facilitator. I'll just check the chat. So during the family planning stage, parents are on their own making a plan. Yes, parents and the extended family. So all of the extended family are in there, which of course that brings, it does bring complexities. But these are the conversations that we have with family, obviously, as well. In the preparation, we look at how might they work together in the planning stage? Is there any concerns they have? How would they be able to deal with that? But honestly, in the family planning stage, that goes better than anything else on the day. Like, it always is really such an incredible time. And yeah, I often feel really emotional in family planning time when I'm outside the door or when it's finished, because I just think, wow, this is a process that families never used to get to participate in.
Mm.
And they start working together. They come up with some really great ideas. Often families that have said to me, oh, you'll never get them in the room together. They literally just had punch ups with each other in the street. The conflict is so high there. Yet in the family plan, children's birthdays, they're all going to come together as a family barbecue. There's a lot of, and all these different, the thing is, all the different family members, they're part of that planning, they're part of that process. Like they're coming together to unite for one thing, which is the children. Some real magic happens in that. Yes, sometimes hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to echo that because I think, Yulia, you're asking very much the same sort of questions I did. Coming to FGC as an FDRP, we're so used to feeling like we have to be in control of the interaction, and it's really nerve-wracking thinking I'm going to leave them alone for that long. And that's why we say FGC is an empowering process. I mean, it walks the talk. Like it literally does use that strengths-based approach and creates the framework and then creates the space for that family to do what they're saying. But it does take a change of mindset for those who are coming from a mediation background.
How do you ensure they cover everything they need to cover during that time on their own? Yeah, good question. And we don't need to cover everything. That's the great thing. We really look at what's one of the biggest things is what's the purpose of this family group conference? And this is something that we really help people to understand, because otherwise, yeah, we would be there for a week if we were to cover everything that was going on for them. So we really pick like what are the purposeful things that really need to be covered. And then we have guiding questions. So again, this is where it can become very similar to FDRP. As a facilitator, you create those questions and you give it to everyone based on your preparation meetings with family members and with caseworkers, service workers. I never create those questions until I've finished meeting with everyone. And then that helps them with planning. Let me just give you a really basic example. There's usually only 3 to 4 questions, but this is how I like to do it for families. I've just got a pen here, I'll show you. Like very simple like this. And so you might have that on butcher's paper, for example. Can you see that okay, guys? Yeah. So you just put the question at the top, actions, who and when. And that's what the family need to work on. So they've got, and you've created them based off all the pre-discussions. And so you're considering the bottom lines in these questions. You're considering what concerns the other family members have brought up. And you put the questions there. And the family just go through and they answer them and they come up with a plan together. It's definitely not ignoring. The other thing that we need to keep paramount as well is there is child safety concerns here, and they can't be forgotten, and they're not forgotten, and the non-negotiables and the planning questions really help with that. Yeah, guiding questions, exactly. Thanks for your questions. Very helpful. I'll just go back to my last couple of slides. So where is the work with a family group conference facilitator? You can be private. That's all I ever did back many years ago. And then I built relationships, not only with, I already had the relationships with the department, but then with out-of-home care services, and also like it's something that's been used a lot in youth services. I'd love to see it used more in aged care services. I think this is like a really great way, and disability services as well. But what you'll find is there'll be a lot of referrals that'll come from out-of-home care services now. But the panel of providers really is where most of the work comes from. So getting on that preferred provider, which they release tenders for you to apply to go onto it. When I say tender, it's not like a big tender process that you would think of. It's literally just like a job application that you put in. You're answering a few questions. It's not that complex. They just want to know that you have experience, that you're trained, and a few other things. Because obviously we need to make sure that people that come have the experience and the knowledge to be able to facilitate conferences. One outstanding question I'd like to know, what's an average hourly rate for private New South Wales conveners? It is $120 an hour. All expenses are paid, travel is paid on top of that. Accommodation, whatever else is required, flights, travel. We deliver the course, the FGC course, in 3 half-day online sessions. And then there's also, so it's a bit of a hybrid, there's also an online course that you go through as well. So you can just move through that at your own pace. That's just so that you have more detail to dig deeper. But most of it is really learned in the 3 half-day sessions. And then we have ongoing support, monthly different training sessions and Q&A and things like that when people become part of the Mediation Institute as well. So the next one that's coming up is in February. We do like 1 session 1 week and 2 sessions in the next week. So it's usually about 3 to 4 hours each session. And on the 3rd session, we do a full simulation of a family group conference. So you'll get an opportunity to play a family member. We do a bit of role playing, a little bit of acting. So you actually get the sense and the feelings of what that's like. My goal when I do the training is that I take you through from A to Z the steps that you need to take in order to walk away and facilitate. Of course, there's lots of learnings and different things that you learn along the way as well. But the great thing is if you are a panel of provider, then there is a mentoring system within the Department of New South Wales now too. And then we have another one coming up in May as well. So if you can't make it to the February one, you can also start to get enrolled in the May one. You probably can't click that link, but maybe Ro, you're able to just drop that into the chat for everybody if they do want to take a little bit more of the information. I think this is the updated one, but it'll all be on the website. That's 1,400 to do the workshop, and that includes all 3 days as well. That's probably all the information that you need in terms of having an understanding of what is family group conferencing. And if it's something that you would like to learn further about, then we would love to have you. So over those 3 days, we do a lot of role playing together. I do share a lot of my different experiences. I try to share with you and contextualize all the different parts of family group conferencing and give you real examples, because I have done hundreds of family group conferences. I'm able to give you some real live examples of what that might look like in different stages.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So another quick question there as well.
Oh, okay. About documents that
Yeah.
we provide in the course, because if you wanted to respond to that. So
It's a package of documents.
the template files and example invitations and things like that.
Yeah, so they're all in the training portal. So inside the training portal, you would pretty much have everything that you need. We also have a workbook as well that you get. And yeah, there's lots of different examples and PDFs and things inside the training portal that you're able to access. And even the departments like forms and referrals and handouts and stuff, we have all that in there. So then you can just go ahead and create your own from that as well. Yeah,
and we're very happy for R&D, rip off and duplicate. Our goal is that you get trained and you get out there and you do this work. We want to provide whatever support's needed. With the ongoing PD, we always invite, if there's a particular area you'd like us to focus on, then.
And Eve has offered to already do a PD in February as a group supervision.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. There's sometimes group supervision, sometimes we do, like you might have a guest or a particular topic, or just looking at cases. Yeah. Yulia's very interested in the cost structure, and that was for the government funded services New South Wales panel, I think, if you wanted to.
Yeah, and privately, that's most people charge. Some people charge a little bit more, but most people just stick with the department. So yeah, it's 120. Plus, you do get travel time outside of a certain radius. I can't think off the top of my head, but I think it's 50 kilometers radius. And then anything outside of that, you get travel time, and you also you can charge for the travel. There's a petrol rate. You also so if you were to go for 3 days, for example, and you had to fly somewhere, they would pay. There's a whole coordinator, actually. You get reimbursed for any food, all of that kind of stuff. So it's quite good in that sense.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, to be honest. It really hasn't changed much. Of course, they've updated little bits and pieces, but yeah, that in terms of what they actually pay, it really has not changed that much at all. So whatever you found is probably very similar to what it is now. No problem. Anything else? Okay. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you for joining for this webinar on family group conferencing. Hope you found the information valuable. If you have any further questions or something to share, feel free to leave your comments below. And while you're on YouTube, remember to like and share. You can subscribe to our channel for more information and resources on dispute resolution, family dispute resolution, and family group conference facilitation and related topics. If you want to find out more about becoming a family group conference facilitator, or are already and would like membership-based support, visit our website mediationinstitute.edu.au. Once again, thank you to Eve Claire for sharing her expertise and to everyone for your participation. Until next time, take care and keep empowering families.